I'd been in the horse industry all my life, and it's something that I didn't realize until I saw this film how prolific the horse slaughter industry was, even in the thoroughbred racing industry.
Just got done seeing the movie, and I was really moved. Had no idea that any of this went on, and it just was really eye-opening. And I think it's a picture that everyone should see.
It's not sentimental. It's not cloying. It doesn't play on people's emotions. It tells the truth. It's completely factual. It's unbiased.
It's a complete enlightenment, education, if you will, about the issues, putting the facts together and talking about the lies and the mendacity of certain government officials who want to keep horse slaughter going and exterminate our wild horses and burros.
I had no idea that horses were here 50 million years before we got here and that they originated in North America.
Just the information about the Mustangs and the wild horses, found that pretty shocking, the ways that they're corralled and then abused and then taken to slaughter.
The truth is that no one goes into this film and comes out not knowing more than before they went in.
Once you see this film, you notice that it isn't just one issue. There's a lot of different angles as to why this horse problem is existing.
I didn't quite realize the numbers that ended up at the slaughterhouse out of the Jockey Club registration numbers.
The statistics were far worse than I had ever imagined.
Yeah, and those are conservatives' numbers.
The fact that there's so much lying.
It has been a wake-up call to me about what happens in Washington, period. Because if this is happening to our horses, it's happening to a lot of the issues that are important to the American public.
Anyone who's very interested in our environmental crisis issues here in America should see this film.
Whoever controls the media and controls the message, they control it, so that's what they're doing.
The way that Congress is blocking any protection of the wild horses, protection against horse slaughter.
Everybody that I've spoken with coming away from the film has come away with, like I say, a new awareness.
It was very eye-opening.
I think about Oprah Winfrey when she had the slave trafficking information going out in film, and she said, "How dare you not watch it," or "How dare you turn away?" And I thought about that with this.
The truth of this horse slaughter industry, it's not to help abused animals. It's not to prevent abuse or anything of that sort. The driving force here is a foreign market demand for American horse meat. When that comes through and people understand that 80% of the horses that are being slaughtered are between 3 and 5 years old and are healthy, it changes the whole perception to a truth that has been grossly distorted by the slaughter industry.
The average horse guardian, horse owner in this country would never dream of sending their horses to slaughter.
The people in the horse racing industry, by and large, are in it not for money. They're in it because they love the animal.
I can't imagine people eating horse meat, which I think that's very, very wrong.
Part of the American landscape, and the idea that we're not honoring that landscape is really a shame.
It's a story that needs to be told.
This film is a product that we can really use as a powerful tool to educate people.
We'll protect our wild horses, we'll protect our race horses, we'll protect America's horses, and that's the whole purpose of this film.
It's bad agriculture that we're sending horses to other countries for people to eat that, where the meat is toxic. I mean, what does this say about us as a society?
They're endangered, and they definitely need like some kind of support to help them.
We don't want horses to become extinct.
I don't want to be in a world without horses.
You've got to come see this movie. It'll really change your life.
Go see it. Tell your friends to go see it so that the word spreads, because it's all about that.
I am impressed.
I think that people should flock to see this film.
It's beautifully done. It's beautifully edited.
We have to preserve these beautiful animals. We have to preserve our earth. I love that horses can help save our grazing lands. It's a perfect solution.
We need to put pressure on our lawmakers, and that's where people can get motivated, and film like this can help do that.
It's important for our population to see this film, and for the horses.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Meet America. And we're going to be talking about our horses and how they are the messengers for the American people of how corrupt some of our government officials are in Washington, because our horses are being slaughtered by the thousands. And the Bureau of Land Management under Ken Salazar and before him President Bush have been lying to the American people that the horses are starving on our public lands and need to be removed. So if you go and see Saving Our Wild Horses, Saving Our America's Horses, you will be educated, as that trailer just described. We're going to be talking today with Dr. Lester Freidlander, and he is the former USDA meat inspector, chief meat inspector for the largest meat packing plant in the United States. And he trained all the meat inspectors in America because he was so good for 10 years. He was very vigilant with his job, and then he got fired in that meat packing plant because he was reporting too many violations. And this is what happens to whistleblowers. But he is an eye-opener to all of us, and he's been interviewed in Forbes magazine and many other. He's been interviewed by Forbes magazine, and Business Week is the interview coming up. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Lester Freidlander.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dr. Lester Freidlander, would you tell the public your latest finding? You know, you recently had an interview with us in which you said that you were fired from your plant because of reporting so many violations, and that whistleblowers are not protected by our Obama administration, are they?
No, it is a law that Congress passed, but it has no teeth in it.
Well, that's exactly right, because you have too many congressional members that are corrupt and being bought by the meat industry, the meat lobbyists. I personally want to thank Congressman Sam Farr. He is in the Monterey District, a marvelous man when it comes to saving our wild horses and trying everything he can. So please contact him if you're from the Monterey District and thank him for his efforts. But not everyone is like Sam Farr, and there's too many people in this Committee on Agricultural Appropriations that is now deliberating right now as we speak to use your tax dollars, your hard-earned money, to inspect horse meat, where at the same time they've taken away $20 million to inspect the beef industry. And Dr. Lester Freidlander, would you talk a little bit about that?
Well, when you talk about budget cuts, I think the federal government will have to get priorities straight. We have a system here that to protect the consumer with meat and poultry inspection, but when you say about taking money out of that inspection service, that leaves the consumer very little confidence in their government if the food is safe and healthy to eat.
And what kind of grade would you give the USDA inspection service due to the cuts from an A to an F? What would you grade them at now?
Well, from my experience in USDA, and now also I'm a consumer, so I'm really concerned. I would actually give them an F for failing to provide the service that that Congress asked that federal agency to do to protect the consumer. I think they're doing a lousy job of meat and poultry inspection and protecting us.
And of course, Dr. Lester Freidlander would know, folks, because he was the chief USDA meat inspector for the largest meat packing plant in the United States, and he trained all the meat inspectors. So you can't get it from anyone who has better knowledge of what's going on in these plants. And meanwhile, they're now deliberating to take your tax dollars and spend it on inspecting horse meat. So if you don't call the subcommittee on appropriations in the next couple of days and your own congressperson and say you do not want your tax dollars going towards inspecting horse meat. We don't eat horse meat in this country. We don't eat our companion animals, and that it needs to go back into the meat inspection for beef. And you did say in our last interview, Dr. Freidlander, that you had actually done a post-mortem on cows that had mad cow and were turned into burgers. Isn't that correct?
Well, I was the first veterinarian in the United States, whether it be private, state, or federal government. I was taking actually cow brains out and sending it on my own to the lab to test for mad cow disease. When I saw the cow brains after I took them out, they looked very suspicious. I believe there was some kind of central nervous system involvement in those brains, but every time USDA would send the results back, it would not say that it was positive for mad cow disease. To give you an example, one of the cow brains I sent came back and said it was positive for chlamydia, which is a sexual disease.
Aha, you see, it is my opinion, folks, in this corrupt system, they don't want you to know that mad cow disease exists in our meat industry, and therefore they would not. Now, why don't you tell us your experience with the Center for Disease Control, where you contacted the head veterinarian there and alerted him as to the Jonas disease that caused Crohn's disease in humans when they eat the dairy products of these milk cows. What kind of reaction did you get there?
Well, when I talked to this Dr. Rubin from CDC in Atlanta, she's a veterinarian, and I told her about what I found in the research that USDA said in Ames, Iowa, that there's a link between the bacterial disease in dairy cows called Giardia disease is a link to Crohn's disease in humans. She said she really didn't hear about that research, and she was kind of surprised about it, and she said it was interesting, and she said she'd get back to me and see what the status is going to be with CDC, if they are actually going to say that it is a disease, a zoonotic disease that in animals that cause a disease in humans, and that was over 3 months ago, and she never got back to me.
Never got back to him, folks, you see? So there's that disconnect, there's the corruption, and everyone needs to go vegan. It's the only way we're going to save ourselves. It's the only way we're going to stop the torture of our animals on this planet that have a right to their own lives, and they don't have to be murdered by the likes of us. So is there anything else you want to tell the public, Dr. Lester Freidlander?
Just one thing, just on the horse topic. It's been already shown that what happened with our burros and wild horses there that is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. There was a gentleman from Colorado named Tom Davis who actually went and got 1,700 horses from the Bureau of Land Management and said he was going to adopt them out. And to this very day, they've been investigating Tom Davis, and they don't know what happened to the 1,700 horses. They weren't adopted out. It looks like Tom Davis made some money off it and sent it to slaughter. And what's really interesting about it is Tom Davis has a farm located in Colorado, and his next-door neighbor is the Secretary of the Interior, Ken Salazar. And Tom Davis, when he was interviewed, has known Salazar for 20
And you know what's interesting is if you adopt a horse from BLM, they have the right to come on your property for 1 year and check up on that horse. And yet when they were asked, the BLM, Sally Sanders was asked to check up on where those horses went, Tom Davis said, I don't have to tell you, and he didn't. And the BLM said, well, we trust Tom Davis. So this is how deep the corruption goes. And the horses are our messengers, folks, and they are sending us a big message that if you don't start getting active, if you don't start sending big messages to the meat industry that you're not going to buy their meat anymore, you're going to boycott them, and you keep them powerful, God knows the diseases that you're going to have, the sicknesses you're going to bring on your children, it's already happening, okay? And Alzheimer's is linked with mad cow, and that science has been suppressed, but it is linked with mad cow, and they're predicting that 15 million Americans now are coming down with Alzheimer's. So what a great nation we're going to have of Alzheimer's and victims from eating this meat. So folks, please call your congressperson, your senator today. This is end of February 2013, and we only have 2 weeks while these people in this subcommittee are deliberating right now whether or not to allow for horse meat inspection of the meat, and with your tax dollars, while cutting the budget on the meat inspection for beef. That's how corrupt it is. And they want to do it, you know, because the meat lobby is lobbying them very heavy. They're doing their work. So do your work. Please, folks, please help the horses and help yourself and protect your children, for God's sakes. My God, we cannot be a nation of mush puppets. Are we mush puppets? I'm beginning to think we are. So get on that horn and do something. Thank you for watching. I want to thank you. Thank you for watching. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Lester Freidlander, for being your brave, wonderful self and telling the American people what's going on.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's so important to support and stop this cruelty and let the powers that be know that you do not want horse slaughter, that that's not something you want. So we're going to now go to watch what your meat habit does. The first thing we're going to see is the death of Braveheart. What you need to know is this is paid for by your tax dollars, by the criminal Ken Salazar, who is a Secretary of Interior, that is a rancher. He comes from a rancher family. He shouldn't even be in that position, but he is. And with your tax dollars, they're rounding up these horses, and watch how they treat the horses. Watch what they do to that whole family, that beautiful family of Stallion and his mare and his foal. Thank you for watching.
On this morning in the vast Nevada landscape, not only did another Mustang family lose everything in a BLM roundup, a stallion lost his life. The brown stallion, named Braveheart by advocates who witnessed his death, died soon after being stampeded by a helicopter into a BLM trap pen. The Bureau of Land Management, or the BLM as they are commonly called, is currently engaged in a campaign of endless roundups of America's last remaining wild horses. The goal of this campaign appears to be to reduce America's wild horse population to a few token herds. I would expect the BLM to have the compassion and decency to leave such a small family alone. The BLM allows the contractors operating the helicopters to decide which horses to round up. Unfortunately, the contractors, who are paid $250 to $300 for every horse they capture, are only concerned with maximizing their profits by rounding up every last horse in the herd management area. Using a helicopter to frighten the horses, BLM ran them into a trap pen. Braveheart lagged behind his family, seemingly torn between making a run for freedom and protecting his mare in full. Braveheart chose family over freedom, even though that meant following them into the jaws of the trap. It cost him his life. Once in the trap, Braveheart's child was forcibly separated from him and the child's mother. This was the last time this family will ever be together. Soon Braveheart's mare and his child will watch helplessly as Braveheart dies slowly next to them in the trap. Braveheart and his white mare are clearly and understandably disoriented and stressed by the loss of their freedom and the forced separation of their child. Without any concern for the anxiety these horses were experiencing as a result of his actions, this wrangler walks up and ties a saddle horse right next to Braveheart and his mare. In what appears to be an attempt to defend his mare in full against the other horse and to break his family free of the trap, Braveheart valiantly charged the bars of the trap pen and slammed his body into the fence, breaking his neck. Braveheart fell down and then struggled to his feet. While Braveheart slowly died, his child, unable to reach his father or mother, frantically spun in circles in the trap pen. Unable to raise his head, Braveheart collapsed and slowly died with his mare and child looking on. While standing over Braveheart, the BLM wranglers forced the mare away and then put her into a trailer. With her stallion dead or dying, and her child forcibly taken from her, the mare remained disoriented and stressed. 20 minutes after breaking his neck, the wranglers dragged Braveheart, covered by a tarp, onto the same trailer as his mate. It is unknown whether Braveheart is dead or still alive at this time. "40 minutes after Braveheart broke his neck, the truck carrying him drove off, leaving Braveheart's child alone in the trap pen, never to see his mother or father again. Although this roundup operation was on public lands, the advocates were threatened with a citation and/or arrest if they accessed the public road to follow the truck with Braveheart's body, even though there was no roundup operation going on at the time.
I'll give you one warning. After that, you get a citation. After that, you're escorted out. Okay? That's just...
Eventually, the advocates were allowed to leave. Back at the holding site, the advocates requested permission to access another public road to view the body and burial of Braveheart. This access was denied by Ben Noyes, a BLM wild horse and burro specialist, and the advocates were again threatened with a citation and/or arrest if they accessed the public road.
Ben, Ted.
This is Ben.
I'm here with Denise, and she's requesting access to take a look at the horse when it's buried.
Well, we're denying that.
I copy. Would you be available to talk to her after you're done?
No, we'll have a vet report wrote up by our APHIS vet who's here, doing a neocropsy on it, and we'll take care of it that way.
Okay, so to answer your question further, if you decide to go
to see the burial,
yeah, you face citation and/or arrest.
While filming the backhoe and Braveheart's body from a distance, dirt was piled atop the stallion next to mounds containing the bodies of numerous other victims of this roundup. True to form, a government-contracted wrangler moved a truck and trailer to block the advocate's view.
These horses vocalized, calling out for help to masters and mistresses that they thought loved them. Still suffering, because you see, the stun gun isn't appropriate. You have to get a dime-sized mark. So please contact your representatives and tell them to co-sponsor the Horse Slaughter Prevention Act. This is such brutality, such cruelty to an animal that is a conduit, making us better people, who has ridden us through history on their backs. And this is how you allow them to be treated, to die, so someone can eat them, some diabolical person can eat them, that's so disconnected from the spirit they don't even know what they're doing, and we're going to follow in their footsteps? It's so tragic what is going on with our horses, both wild and domestic. They punched him, and Dr. Lester Freidlander testified before Congress that the stun gun was not an appropriate means of slaughter. It just didn't work for horses. This horse was shot something like 27 times, you know, and they could use nitrogen gas stunning. I actually contacted them. They don't hit them properly, you see. You have to hit a dime-sized mark. This is the cruelty. That's how much he just keeps pounding them away. And this is what's going on in these plants, and this is what you allow, because you don't want to look, people. You don't want to do anything but eat your burgers. I tell you, you know, no wonder our government's so cruel, because the people are so cruel. The people are very, very cruel. And you just don't care about the suffering. You go, oh, I don't want to look. Yeah, you just want to eat. I tell you, it is so tragic what we are as a people. And he finally has to get a gun, you know. Look how many times that horse had to be shot, and he's still not dying, because he hasn't gotten the dime-sized mark that you have to get. He's not trained. So that's what's going on with your horse. And when you go to a horse trainer, ask them if they're for slaughter, because if they are, you don't want your horse going there. You know, how many times did that horse have to get shot? You saw it yourself. And horses are our sacred friends. They are our sacred friends.
Well, it's the same anywhere. As long as the slaughter kill buyers are not going to spend a lot of money on horses, and as long as everybody gets together and makes a pact that we're not going to let these horses go, we'll find them a home somewhere eventually. You just got to get everybody involved and say, okay, well, I can keep one at my place for a few weeks, or you know, I can go ahead and I can upbid this guy and make sure I get this horse out of his bit or out of his business, and you know, just not make them available to the kill buyers.
All right. Well, thank you so. What you're seeing here is the Agricultural Rural Development Food and Drug Administration site page, and Representative Robert Adderholt from Alabama, where a lot of the wild horses are stockpiled, and now BLM is saying they must, they don't have the money to take care of these horses, so they're going to have to send them to slaughter. This was all pre-planned a long time ago. He's the chairman, and I'm very, very nervous that these horses are going to go to slaughter. And what was the state that just passed laws pertaining to horse slaughter, that it is now legal to slaughter horses in Indiana, is it?
You're talking to me?
Where? Do you know what state that is?
It was Oklahoma.
It was Oklahoma.
It's in committee. It hasn't been completely passed yet. As a matter of fact, today, the governor, Mary Fallon, is taking voice recordings on her phone asking people to comment on it.
I see.
They are, you know, I can give you the phone number if anybody would like to call and leave Mary Fallon
yes.
a message about horse slaughter.
Well, yes. What is that number?
It's area code 405.
405.
521.
521.
2342.
2342?
Correct.
2342. And what is her name?
That's Mary Fallon, F-A-L-L-I-N, sort of like Jimmy Fallon, but it's Mary.
Fallon.
Governor of Oklahoma.
Okay, folks, if you can call, it'll probably be too late by the time you watch the show, but call anyway, Governor Mary.
That will lead you to a recording, so that they can leave a voice recording for her.
Yeah. Okay, that number again is 405-521-2342. That's Governor Mary Fallon is asking people to comment on whether horse slaughter should be allowed. And that was in what state again? My memory's totally failed me.
It's Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, folks. So please call. Why don't you tell us what's going on in that committee right now? They've defunded the USDA for meat inspection, $20 million in the last couple of years, as you heard testimony by Dr. Lester Freidlander. And now, Steve Stapp, you're saying that because of a sequester, can you explain that to the American people, what the sequester means and what?
The sequester's been all over the news, and it was intended to be a penal punishment to Congress for not working, not doing their job, and to the president, and that if they did not get certain things done by a date, which was the end of this month, which is Thursday, then all these automatic cuts would go into effect. That would include, defense cuts. It involves the FAA. It's going to take a whole lot of TSA people from the airports. People are going to be standing in huge lines at airports around the country if this sequester goes through. We're going to defund a lot more of the USDA, and there's a lot of inspectors, more inspectors will be furloughed because there's no money to pay them, because it's all being cut by this bill that was passed that said if we don't do our job, we're going to punish ourselves. Well, now they're going to punish themselves. Unfortunately, a lot of other people are going to be punished as well.
Well,
it's at this point in time, the use of, for them to pass the bill to include inspectors for horse meat would be ridiculous. There's too many others. There's more people that are eating cows, beef, poultry, pork, than are eating equines. So they need to be spending that money on the major food sources, not dilly-dallying around with monies to pay for horse slaughter inspections. Especially if they're using domesticated horses, they're not going to pass. The USDA will not pass them if they've been administered veterinary drugs. The unfortunate part is we're not sure exactly what the BLM injects the horses with when they bring them in from the wild. We know they hit them with a mass dose of dewormer because they're now, for the first time, going to be put into pens and gathered together in very close proximity. And so, but as far as any other veterinary type drugs, I'm not familiar with what it is they hit them with, but I've been told they get hit with a goodly amount. But it seems silly. The USDA checks for those drugs after the horse has already been killed, and there's no real good way of testing the horse prior to killing it to see if it in fact has those drugs in its system, making it ineligible to be slaughtered, and then especially if it's going to be shipped overseas, because the USDA has to inspect every meat source that we ship overseas.
Well, I don't trust the USDA at all. It doesn't.
Trust the BLM.
or the BLM. I know there's some very good people in there, but they're being hushed up just like Dr. Lester Freidlander was. And I also know that with the 146 million pounds of horse meat that was in me, that those corrupt people in Congress who are working so hard to bring in horse slaughter would pass such a diabolical act as killing our horses and using our tax dollars to inspect the meat. So we'll see. I hope you're right, Steve. And I want to thank you.
I want to tell you, one of the comments that I left on the governor's voicemail was that, yes, I am not a resident of the state of Oklahoma, but it is my business because if, in fact, it's going to be utilized to kill my wild horses, you know, the American people need to remember these are our horses. They do not belong to the government. They belong to the people. And, you know, we have to give them permission to do certain things. Part of the way the Wild Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act was written was, for instance, when it was amended in 1976, I believe it was, for the use of helicopters. It was even put in there that before the helicopters could be used on a roundup, it had to be brought before a public forum for the public to be able to, you know, state their case. Of course, they have those meetings to, you know, go about the, you know, to do as the law says, but then they don't pay any attention to it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, and
I did tell the governor. I said, you know, it may not be that you know, you're looking for comments from Oklahomans, but you know, those are my horses that you've got a couple of gazillion of, and I don't want them killed by your people because you've decided to slaughter horses in your state.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for what you're doing. Really appreciate it.
All righty. Well, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Folks, please call your congressperson today, your senators. Also, contact the subcommittee on ag appropriations and let them know that you do not want your tax dollars going to inspect horse meat, and that you want your tax dollars being spent on meat safety, on the animals that we do eat. Well, I don't eat, but you out there eat. Please get active, because if they can do this to the sacred horse, slaughtering the horse who has built this nation with us and they know is sacred, the Black Stallion, the movie The Black Stallion, the books that children read. What's next? Dogs and cats? I learned from In Defense of Animals that dogs and cats are being eaten in San Jose. So you see, nothing's sacred. Nothing is sacred. And in some countries, they're even eating human babies. Fetus eating, it's called. So, you know, at what point are you Americans going to take back your government, this corrupt government, and help those in government who are trying to do a good job? Support them. So please call Sam Farr's office and thank him so much for his integrity and honor in honoring the horse, the animal that should be our national symbol. Not a predatory eagle, but the horse that built this nation with us, that horse is protected, and our wild horses are put back on their legal herd management areas where they belong, and not like BLM says that they don't have any money and they have to go to slaughter. Please do your part. Thank you so much for watching. We are now going to interview Marilyn Wilson, who has some information about what's going on in Europe with this horse slaughter issue and the American horse meat industry. And so now we have on the phone Marilyn Wilson, and she's our reporter for Meat America up in Spokane, Washington. And she's going to talk to us about the corruption that's going on with horse slaughter in the United States and what Europe is doing about horse slaughter as far as our horses go. Welcome to the program, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Okay, why don't you tell what you have unearthed as far as this super huge scandal that's going on about finding horse meat in UK Burger King and probably our own.
Right. Well, as a horse advocate and an anti-horse slaughter advocate for many years, we've known that, this was probably going to happen, but it sure came about at a good time right now. The scandal that's reached some 22 countries right now involved in this horse meat scandal, and basically what it is they were putting horse meat in lasagna and meatballs and sauces and stuff and selling it at 100% beef. Burger King had 30% horse meat in their burgers, which is sort of what happened in the beginning, and they were tested and found that it contained horse meat. England, it's huge. This scandal is huge, and it's really going to help our cause. Switzerland, as of 2 days ago, Friday, banned all horse meat coming into their country, no imported horse meat, until this straightened away. We're hoping, and Switzerland also has, we've heard that people are going to have lawsuits against the retailers for serving them horse meat, and supposedly when it was beef. So Switzerland is very good, moved in recently to ban horse meat, and Russia now has joined. They've also banned all pork, beef, and turkey from America due to ractopamine, which is a bite that's given to increase growth rate quickly and also make the animal leaner. And the EU, China, and Russia have banned it for many years, and America keeps using it. And so Russia just last week told America they would accept no more meat from them until they quit using it. Mm-hmm. It is, and then 2 days later, when the horse scandal broke out, then Russia also said no more horse meat from Canada or Mexico because of the drug issue. And Switzerland also was shown the tapes of the inhumane treatment of horses, and that they included Argentina, Chile, and the USA. They were shown, I don't know who, I believe it may have been the animal angels, and Switzerland was up in arms basically and said, no more, we're not taking any more horse meat from you guys. You're cruel and inhumane, and our standards of treating animals is pretty high, and we're just not going to accept it.
Segment on what is happening. Now we're going to have a segment on what is happening to our wildlife across America. Our wildlife, including the wild horses, the buffalo, the wolves, the bears, the pumas, you name it. Everything that even competes in any way with the beef industry is being destroyed across this great nation of ours. And the only way we can stop it is sending a big message to the meat industry that we're going to boycott their meat industry until they stop lobbying Washington and those corrupt senators and congresspeople who are voting to kill our wolves, our bears, our pumas, so that the cattle industry can have their livestock. And I want you to know, folks, that these livestock ranchers, they get compensated for every single lamb, every single sheep or cow that is on these lands that get killed by predators and with our tax dollars. But that isn't enough. They want to kill them all. So we're going to watch this tribute to the wolves, and it's produced by Kim Richard. You can find her on Facebook, Kim Richard, Napa, California, and she has the AngelArcFoundation.com. So, folks, don't want to block this beautiful picture of this wolf's face, but we have on the phone with us, we have Kim Richard, and this was her beloved wolf that she followed. Why don't you tell us about this wolf, Kim? Why don't you tell us about this wolf, Kim?
Okay, the 06/8/32, 06 standing for the year that she was born, and the 832 was what the researchers was able to track her by on her radio collars. This wolf was absolutely unique. She was a iconic figure and a great ambassador for all wolves. She emerged as a pup, and even as a pup, she was a born leader, and people would come from all over the world and to Yellowstone in hopes of just getting a glimpse of this beautiful wolf. On December 6th, 2012, a hunter in Wyoming shot and killed her on a rare jaunt out of the safeties of Yellowstone National Park. There is no buffer zone around Yellowstone, so therefore the Yellowstone wolves are not protected. Even the ones with radio collars are not protected. And if there would have been a buffer zone, this wolf probably would have never been shot and killed, and she would still be alive today. But I had the honor of actually seeing this wolf one time. She was about 150 yards away from me, and which was really close. You know, a lot of people was standing taking pictures. But she just stopped, and she was like, okay, here I am, take your pictures, I know I'm awesome. And, but she stopped, and for a split second, you know, her eyes just looked straight at me, and there is absolutely no words that can describe that feeling of a connection and seeing a beautiful wild soul, like the 06 was. So her death has really brought a mourning process into my life, and I have actually lost the will to ever want to go back to Yellowstone, because my beloved wolf, the wolf that I enjoyed the most, and I hope to even just get a glimpse or even listen to her unique howl, is gone. And but I know she has some beautiful daughters to carry on her lineage and her bloodline, but still it's not the same as having the 06 running around.
Yes, that is such a tragic story. So in honor of her, why don't you tell the folks about what's happening March 11th in Sacramento? Maybe some people will go.
On March 11th is the day of remembering on the west side of the Capitol building from 1 to 5. I have people coming from all over in honor of the 06 to bring awareness of the atrocity that is facing not only our wolves, but facing our wildlife as a whole, from the bears to the grizzly bears, to the coyotes that are being killed as moving targets, you know, in contests, to the wild horses that is being rounded majority of the people want. They are listening to what the minority of the people want. They are listening with people with deep pockets, with deep money, and not listening to the average, everyday voters like myself and 90 million other people here in the United States. They just are not listening to us when it comes to our wildlife. So I'm hoping that a day of remembrance will start a chain of events and will get our voices out there and get our government listening to what we the people of the United States of America want and not what the minority of the United States of America want.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Kim. And people can go to your website, and they can also find you on Facebook. And hopefully we'll get a huge crowd up there. And
yes, more the merrier, because petitions are wonderful. They do work. But the government gets swamped so much with petitions and petitions and petitions. After a while, they kind of get shuffled off to the side. But what really makes a statement is boots on the ground.
yes.
I'm showing the support.
All right.
Outside, coming to the demonstrations.
All right. Well, I'll certainly be there, and I'll videotape it and show the folks what it was like that couldn't make it. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today and what you're doing.
All righty.
Just